Between those lines, it's a physical battle. But off the field, there's an even bigger battle, one that we can't see. And just like these players put on the armor to protect themselves from physical harm, we must also put on the armor of God to protect ourselves from the enemy. This is faith and football. Welcome back to another episode of Faith in Football, where we not only talk about the battle on the field, but the battle off the field as well. Today, I have a very, very special guest that cannot go understated once again. Former Thomas County Central Yellow Jacket, former Florida State Seminole, former New York Knicks, Houston Rocket, and San Antonio Spur, 1993 Heisman winner and national champion, Mr. Charlie Ward. Brother, thank you for doing this. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir. It's crazy how God works. I don't know if you saw, I think you saw, the first episode I did was with Mr. Chris Broussard, and he mentioned you as someone who inspired him as far as athletes in the faith.
Seeing Charlie Ward, reading an article about Charlie Ward in Sports Illustrated, who was the Heisman Trophy winner, and reading about how he was a Christian, and reading about Evander Holyfield as the heavyweight champ who was a Christian, like men that I respected again because they were great athletes.
Right.
Seeing that, even seeing musicians who were Christians, that really, all of that played a role in me eventually coming to Christ.
Yes, Chris is. I remember Chris as a reporter when he was covering the New York Knicks, and one of the things that became evident was, his belief in Jesus Christ, and he started attending some of the chapels, and once I got to a point where I left the Knicks, he became a big time advocate for the Lord outside of what he was doing. He was on one of the shows I think on Fox. Became one of those hosts, and you just see his relationship with the Lord shining through, him being on public television, and then some of the things that he was doing, in ministry as well, linking up with other prominent Christians to do ministry, and so that was something that I was grateful to be able to know him. Christopher Saar, he's big time.
Yes, sir. Yeah, he was grateful enough to be. He was my first guest on here, so that was meant a lot to me, and I still have a relationship. I still keep in touch with him a little bit, so I'll definitely reach out to him after this. So, man, the one thing I wanted to talk to you about, I was really excited to talk to you about, was a current quarterback at Florida State, Mr. Jordan Travis, who unfortunately had an apparent leg injury this past week. Have you heard any update on him and how he's doing, or have you talked to him?
No, I don't talk with him. I talk to people that are close to him as far as, on the staff on the staff, just to get an update of where he is. And I've been following him on social media. I know he has a lot of people, reaching out to him. So I'll wait, probably next week to go and check on him when kind of things die down. Most times that's when people have stopped calling you or texting you, checking in. So I'll wait till next week, but I know they're waiting for the swelling to go down, and then they're going to look to have the surgery, which is, something that always normally happens when you have a situation like this. They have to wait for that swelling to go down before they can do the surgery. The injury very similar to his, but from what I hear, he's in great spirits. Of course, a lot of his teammates are going by to check him out, and he has quite a few people that he's, that love him, which is always the best place to be when you're going through tough situations. And so I'm just happy that he's, loved, and there are people out there that's willing to go by and support him, and because I think we all need that, especially during this type of situation where you weren't expecting to be in that situation, and now you are. I think sometimes we do say we're okay, and but sometimes we're not okay.
Absolutely.
But it's good to be able to have people that love you, care for you, come by and check on you. Those things are very valuable.
Absolutely, and we're definitely praying for him. Like I said, I've been following him all year, and I know he's mentioned in the Heisman race, along with a lot of other quarterbacks and athletes. Um, so yeah, we're definitely praying for Jordan Travis. I know that was his final collegiate game, so I hope he can bounce back from that and still continue to excel at the next level. And obviously, Florida State as well as a program, they're still in the playoff hunt. They're still in the national championship hunt. So hopefully they can find a way to rally around the new quarterback and they can continue to have success this season as well. Um, I know. Let's talk about you. Let's dive into your past. I know. Obviously, you played for Florida State. You graduated from Thomas County Central High School, and who's currently I saw they're 12-0 in a playoff run this year in the 6A quarterfinals, I believe. So they're having a great
Correct.
season. You graduate from there. You go to Florida State with Coach Bobby Bowden, who's obviously rendered as a legend in the college football world. And obviously in 1993, your senior year, you not only win the Heisman Trophy, but you deliver Florida State and Coach Bowden their first national championship. What did that mean to you as being the leader of that team?
Well, I mean, it's always great to be a champion, be crowned a champion in anything at the end of the day. And there were great teams before us. I was a part of a few teams that were close to winning the championship, but just weren't able to get over the hump for whatever reason. And it was just our year. We did lose one game that year, which took us out of the running for, one of the best ever college teams. But we were the first team to be able to uh, bring Florida State a national championship. Coach Bowden had been coaching for quite some time during that time. And he had, like I mentioned, had some great teams, but we were the first to be able to overcome that. And I was just grateful to be on that team because, you know, everyone sets out at the beginning of the year to win the national championship. And that was like our end goal. And to be able to have an opportunity to do it and then actually going and doing it, it takes a lot of dedication, teamwork, and guys, during the course of the year, buying into their roles and making plays when we need them. So, we had a good team, and guys were, focused on meeting that goal. And there was one game, as I mentioned, the Notre Dame game where we lost, and it didn't come back to bite us because uh, I'm just a big believer in, if you do things the right way and continue to move forward, God will definitely honor your heart. And so we were blessed by Notre Dame losing the following week. We took a lot out of them, and they ended up losing the following week, which gave us another opportunity to get in the mix of being in that national championship hunt. And we had to take care of our business against North Carolina State and Florida on the road, and we were able to do that. Very similar to where we are in Florida State today. We don't have the ACC championship to play, but they still have to take care of their business in order to give themselves a chance. And we gave ourselves a chance by winning those two games, and we're for an opportunity to play in the national championship against Nebraska. It was a tough game for us. I mean, we scored one touchdown the entire game, and we were able to overcome. Our defense was solid the entire year, and that's what kept us in the game. They kept giving us opportunities. We were able to move the football. We just weren't able to convert more than one time for a touchdown. We ended up kicking field goals the rest of the time. But when you're talking about winning a championship, we would love to have scored more points. However, we talk about team and defense wins championships and those types of things. I think, we were grateful to be able to have a defense that was solid all year. And, that was our calling card. Offensively, we were steady. We did our part. Defensively, they did their part. They don't say how you got it done. They just call you national champ.
Right.
So that's, I was grateful to be a part of it.
That defense led by Hall of Famer Derrick Brooks, right?
Yes,
That defense.
he was one of
Yep.
the leaders on that defense for sure.
Absolutely. And taking us back to that 93-94 season, just to put it in perspective, that was Marshall Faulk was I believe he went number 2, right? He didn't go number 1. He went number 2. As well as other they have like 6 Hall of Famers in that draft class, in the NFL draft class. And then on the flip side, in the 94 draft of the NBA, where you eventually went, you had guys like Grant Hill, Jason Kidd, those type of guys. So that whole both draft classes were loaded in a sense, but you chose to enter the NBA over the NFL. In a sense, you were the floor general in both sports. You played point guard in basketball and quarterback on the field. How do you think those translate, or which one do you think helps the other one more, maybe?
Well, they're both comparable, help each other when you in the
Right,
grand scope of things. Because for me, it was distributing football and distributing basketball in both leadership positions, and
right,
hand-eye coordination, everything's still the same in a lot of ways. So it was just a matter of, it was, for me, for basketball, it was just a matter of being in shape of some form.
yeah,
I was
yeah,
never in basketball shape except for one year. And that was the year that I actually went out and played basketball full time, starting in October. That was the
right.
year that I was in the best shape. All the rest of the years, I was in football shape, and I just figured it out. I figured out my role, and played it to the best of my ability while being out of shape. But that's one of the ways I was able to make it into the NBA because I had upside. I hadn't played basketball full time except for one year. And then that was one of my best statistical years in college when I played full time. So uh, just like I do today, when they're drafting the younger athlete out of one year out of high school, they're drafting on the upside, potential.
Right.
And so I was no different
Absolutely.
in that realm. Just unfortunate that I wasn't able to, get drafted in the NFL because they had the first draft and no one saw me as a first round pick, which was my
Right.
statement that I made about being a first round pick or considering my other options if I was anything after a first round pick. And that was, my plea. I was honest and truthful about it, and it didn't happen. And so no one felt the need to be able to draft me uh, in the NFL draft. So that's how I put all my time and energy into preparing for the NBA draft after that. And the door opened where I was a first
Right.
round pick and played 11 years in the NBA, which is a great blessing.
And you were drafted number 26 overall by the New York Knicks. And obviously, y'all had a finals run in 98, 99 against
99.
the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's actually crazily, that's actually the first NBA finals that I remember because obviously I'm from Texas and I remember it as I was a child back then, watching the Spurs in the finals. So that's actually one of the first, if not the first finals that I remember watching. I believe y'all did it without your leader, Patrick Ewing, right? He went down
Yes.
before that
Patrick had,
series.
had an injury in the Indiana series, and
Right.
Larry Johnson actually had a knee ligament sprain as well. So he played, I think, maybe 2 games out of the 5 or whatever it was.
Right.
And so we were down two big, two big key pieces and two big men. And, Tim Duncan and, um, David Robinson,
Absolutely.
they were a force to be reckoned with, and being able to have have those two guys would definitely help us, in a lot of ways, but we didn't. And we fought to the end, but we just didn't have enough.
Absolutely, yeah. Those two guys are, considered two of the best all time. So when you don't have those bigs to defend that, you're definitely at a disadvantage. But the series wasn't. It was close. Some of those games, looking back at the score, it looked closer. So y'all definitely picked up the slack, so to speak. It just was, wasn't in the cards, I guess. Right?
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, that's part of it, you know.
right.
Like I said,
Absolutely.
we had a good run, and got hot at the right time. We were AC, very similar to Miami Heat, how they were AC this past season. They got hot at the right time and got there and just didn't have enough at the end. But who can say? There's not too many teams that say they were in the finals of the NBA championship. So we're grateful.
Absolutely, especially being in New York. I know they're fighting their way back now, trying to make another run like they did in those days. They're trying to put together a team, and they look pretty good. They're looking better this year. Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, all those guys. They look like they have a solid team where they can make a run possibly in the East. Um, but yeah, so after your NBA career was over, the transition into more of like a ministry role, was that something that you thought of while you were playing, or did it happen afterwards? Or what led you to that?
Well, ministry uh, is the way you live your life on a daily basis first, and then being able to share that with others. Secondly, so I got into high school coaching. I started at a Christian school, Westbury Christian in Houston, Texas. That's kind of where I got started as a high school coach, and grateful that I got an opportunity to be there because, of course, they have Christian principles and values, and I was able to use my or share my Christian faith openly without any hesitation or thoughts of what I wrote down on paper or scripture or whatever the case may be. So that was a great start for me to be able to share my faith and also, grow in my faith during that time as well. I became the head coach my second year there in football, and then I stuck it out 4 more years, I think it was, there as the head football coach. Then I moved to a public school in Pensacola, Booker T. Washington. The next stop, and at that point, you can't share your faith openly, but you find ways to have an impact on others, and people will ask questions about the way you treat them and the way you live your life. And so that's the way I went about sharing my faith, was the way I live my life, the way I treated people. Of course, treat people badly, you apologize, ask for forgiveness. People see that that's different. So I just think it's the way you live your life. Talk about ministry. That's a part of it. And my wife and I, of course, our ministry is first in our home. So being able to, share and live accordingly to the word of God to our kids is something that we value. Then we have a family foundation where we're looking to make an impact on others with a ranch that we're looking to sports youth ranch that we're looking to build here in the Tallahassee area, which will continue to make an impact on others for Christ and just experiences that they may want to have in the arts, wellness, education, in sports space. So, we use the sports to be able to be the hook, to be able to share with others who Jesus Christ is by the way we treat them, as I mentioned, and being able to help them to understand their purpose in life and give them hope, which is something that my wife and I, we were given those opportunities from our parents. We just want to be able to share that experience. We grew up in the church, had our challenges like most Christians have their challenges in their faith. But let's say train up a child in the way it should go, get old, they won't depart.
Yes, sir.
Those are called seeds.
Yes, sir.
We plant them and somebody else waters them, and God is the one that gives us the increase. So we just have to be mindful of how we plant what we're planting so that someone can come along and sprinkle a little bit more water on them. At some point, that doesn't mean that the seeds doesn't get eaten, taken away at some point, but as long as there's a little mustard seed of faith
Absolutely.
in our lives,
Yes, sir.
we can continue to develop and grow.
Yes, sir. And there's a lot of coaches that, that have that impact on kids that may not have that role in their life as a father or someone like that. So, the interview I did, actually, last interview I did was with a coach who's taking on that similar role right now. So, yeah, definitely, I think people don't really see that aspect of coaching. They see the coaching part, but they don't see that role model, that figure, in those kids' lives. So, I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. Um, 2018, you had some illnesses. You had some illness issues due to what you said stress and your diet. As someone who I kind of suffer from stress related issues sometimes, how do you? I know you had a stroke in 2018. How do you combat that now, or what is some advice that you would give someone like myself to combat the stress that you might have been facing back then?
Well, you know, uh, one, we have to trust that God has a plan and everything that we go through is part of his plan. Uh, even the negatives.
Absolutely.
A lot of times we always assume the positives are, what God has called
Right.
for us to have, which is accurate, but also the negatives. So that's part of God's plan for us to learn and grow, become closer to him and trust that he is going to, provide for us. And so just the stress, mine was, when you have stress, it leads to other things. So sometimes people eat, and when they eat things that may not be beneficial in health or beneficial to their bodies. And some people do other things to relieve the stress, to try to drown it out. So for me, I was, not eating
Right.
bad, but I was eating a lot things that weren't healthy for me in the long run. And when you add stress and things that clog your arteries and those types of things, that's when the body shuts down, kind of tells on you in a sense. And so it was just a eye-opening experience for me. And lo and behold, I had the mini stroke on a
Mm.
mission trip. So uh, it was, I was over in Ensenada, Mexico when this incident happened. So it was, I was doing good work there, and the Lord got my attention there while I was on the mission trip, as I mentioned, and it opened my eyes to making sure that I had to take care of my health from a mental standpoint, physical standpoint, and so just getting the mental and physical clarity through. First, I went on a raw diet. More importantly, I removed myself. I was out of that situation where, had a boss that was conniving, backstabbing, and it kind of ate away at me for some time. And I was doing well, but just like anything else, when you have issues like that and you're always going up against that brick wall, Uh, you know, there comes a time where you bump your head and you may have a
Right.
concussion. Right when you bump your head against that brick wall. But you're just grateful that the Lord has given you another opportunity to be able to, learn and grow from that and come out of the concussion in a sense. I'll use that as an analogy. And you may have to take time where there may be 5 days, maybe 10 days, maybe 15 days before you feel, like you're in the right spot,
Yeah.
right space again. Or it can be a year or 2 years where you're in the right space. But during that time, you got to make sure that you're doing everything possible to stay focused, getting healthy and, staying out of the light. If you have, like I mentioned, you have a concussion, staying out of the light, using your sunglasses, getting your rest,
Right.
whatever the case may be, you have to put yourself in that situation to help you develop and grow, whatever that is, or get healthy during that time. And so, I ended up moving to another job, and that job was not as stressful. Had people that would support me, and the things that I was looking to do as a coach. And I was out of an environment where, I would say toxic, but just as I mentioned, there's just the support needed, and grateful for that. And sometimes we do have to remove ourselves from toxic situations because if we don't, we may not be here to be able to witness the turnaround.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's something we have to be mindful of. Talk about stress, dealing with it, understand it, that's what it is. And then sometimes we have to remove ourselves
So
from it.
the key takeaways is if you can control it, if you can remove yourself from those situations, you got to remove yourself. And the things that may not be in our control or the things that we can't really change that easily, we just have to find different ways to kind of combat that and find different ways to deal with them, mostly obviously through faith. And, for me, I worked
Yeah.
overnight for 5 years. So my schedule was, I had one of those crazy schedules that caused stress. I was on boatloads of caffeine and among other things, just to make it through the day, through the night. And, that had a lot to do with my stress and anxiety issues that I faced. So I had to step away from that role, that night role. And it led me to stepping into ministry full time, which obviously there's a lot of peace in that. There's stuff that's stressful about ministry as well, but overall, your focus when it's
Right.
on God and on Jesus Christ, I think the peace that comes with that combats that stress. So that's kind of what's helped me along my journey as well. So thank you for sharing that story, though. I know that had to be a terrible experience for you, but like you said, I'm sure you learned a lot from it, and it made you grow and that much better after.
Oh, 100%. And, you know, sometimes, a lot of people misconstrue, a
Hmm.
good paying job. That's the most high stressful times
Right.
when you're making a lot of money because the expectation of others seems to be higher. You have high expectations for doing your work and those types of things, but when you feel like you're being threatened for what you're supposed to be doing, and you're doing your best, and someone else feels like your best is not good enough, and now you're having to go through all those challenges. Uh, and sometimes it's better to be in a situation where there may be a low paying job, but is you have more peace. And you just may have to change your budget, and how you live or whatever you do. But I do think having the peace of God in your life and being able to handle certain challenges and knowing how to handle those, even if you can't remove yourself, as you mentioned, you have to find ways to, you know, be loving and kind, just like Jesus did. I'm sure he was in high
Absolutely.
stress situations.
Absolutely.
Well, not believe, I know he was. And we just have to be reminded how he handled his situations. And yes, I'm sure he was frustrated at times with others and what people didn't see and he saw. Um, but we gotta be able to handle
Yes,
it
sir.
the way he handled it uh,
Yes.
in a lot of ways, just to remain peaceful and calm within
That's it.
yourself.
And yeah, just stay calm, stay focused on the things above. That's what stay focused is all about. That's my ministry. Stay focused. Stay focused on the things above. Sometimes we can't control certain situations. We deal with it, and we're focused on the things that are important, and that kind of helps me, at least. That helps me get through those difficult situations that I might not be able to get through if I didn't have the peace of mind of faith. And like you said, how Jesus dealt with his situations, how when we read our word, when we read the Bible, we see those situations, and so we relate to that, and that kind of keeps me going as well. Before I let you go, what is a specific Bible verse or your favorite Bible verse that might inspire you, um, that keeps you going? One Bible verse that comes to mind.
Whatever you do it with all your heart,
Absolutely.
working for the Lord and not for man. Of course, that's Colossians 3:23. My life verse that I live by.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Colossians 3:23. That is a great one. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for joining me today. You're definitely an inspiration, not only to athletes, but to us in this Christian faith as well. And I love your story, everything that you went through. And obviously, you mean a lot to people to this day, including myself, Chris Broussard, among others. So thank you so much for joining me, Mr. Charlie Ward. Thank you.
I appreciate you having me on, and maybe I can get up to Chris Broussard status.
To me, you're already there. So absolutely, thank you so much for doing this. Uh, Please, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel for more episodes coming soon. Stay focused, and God bless you.